Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're going to tackle a topic that's absolutely crucial for any Java developer, whether you're just starting out or you're prepping for a big exam. We're talking about the Java Collection API. We're going to break down what it is, exactly why you should be using it, and how it stacks up against the good old arrays you're probably already familiar with. So, let's think about a simple problem. You need to store a list of items. A list of student names, maybe. Seems easy enough. But what happens when that list isn't static? What if a new student joins the class or someone drops out? All of a sudden, what seems simple can become a real headache. And that exact problem is why the Java Collections API even exists.
Now, to really get why the Collection API is such a big deal, we first have to look at what we were using before, or what we still sometimes use, and that's the array. For most of us, arrays are the first thing we learn when we need to store a bunch of values. But as you're about to see, they're not always the best tool for the job.
You've all seen this before, right? When you create an array, you have to tell it its size right from the get-go. So here, we've made an array for integers and we've locked it in at a size of 5. But just think about that for a second. What if you need to store a 6th number? Well, the simple answer is you can't. Not easily, anyway. Not without a whole lot of manual work. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not here to bash arrays completely. They definitely have their place. If you're in a situation where you know you will always have a fixed number of items, say the 4 players in a card game, an array is perfectly fine. It's simple and it's fast. The problem is, the real world is messy, and things are almost never that predictable. And that brings us to the dark side of arrays. They seem really simple on the surface, but they hide some pretty serious issues that can make your code complicated and just a pain to manage. Let's take a look. The number one biggest problem with arrays is their fixed size. Think of an array like an egg carton. Once you buy a carton that holds 12 eggs, that's it. You can't magically make it hold 13. You're stuck with what you've got. And in software, that lack of flexibility is a huge, huge issue. Let's go back to our student list. You created an array for 5 students because that's who signed up. But then on day 2, a new student walks in. Your array is already full. You have no simple way to just add their name to the list. This is exactly where the limits of arrays start to become really frustrating. So what do? Well, you have to go through this really clumsy 3-step process. First, you have to create a totally new, bigger array. Then you have to write a loop to painstakingly copy every single item from the old array into the new one. And finally, you just throw the old array away. It's a ton of extra code, and it's super inefficient. But wait, there's more. The problems don't stop with size. What if you need a common data structure like a stack or a queue? You know, a stack is last in, first out, like a stack of plates. A queue is first in, first out, like a line for coffee. With arrays, you have to build all of that logic yourself, from scratch. You're basically reinventing the wheel every single time you need one. Okay, so if arrays have all these issues, there has to be a better way, right? Yes, there absolutely is. The brilliant minds behind Java gave us a much more elegant and powerful solution. Let me introduce you to your new best friend, the Java Collection API. The Collection API is a total game changer. It gives you data structures that can grow and shrink on their own, so you never have to worry about that fixed size problem again. It comes with all those common data structures like lists, stacks, and queues already built and optimized for you. No more reinventing the wheel. Plus, it has powerful tools for sorting, searching, and more. Basically, it's everything arrays wish they could be. And the best part? This isn't some new trendy feature. The Collection API has been a core, rock-solid part of Java since all the way back in version 1.2. It's been tested and trusted by millions of developers for decades at huge companies like Google and Amazon. It's the real deal. All right, now, before we move on, we have to solve a little mystery. It's a classic point of confusion that trips up almost every single person when they're learning this stuff. And it's all about the word collection itself. You see, in Java, the word collection can mean 3 totally different things, and it all depends on if there's a capital letter or an S at the end. And if you don't know the difference, things can get really confusing fast. Trust me, I was there once too. But don't you worry, it's actually pretty simple once you see it laid out. First, you have collection with a lowercase c. That's just the general concept, the whole framework we're talking about today. Then you have collection with a capital C. That is a specific Java interface. It's like the main blueprint for all collections. And finally, collections with an S on the end. That's a utility class that's just packed with helpful tools. So for your exams, just remember, concept, interface, class. Simple. All right, it's time for the main event. In one corner, the old school, tried and true array. And in the other corner, the flexible, powerful, modern collection. So, which one should you actually be using in your projects? Let's break it down. So, when is it okay to stick with an array? Here's the deal. If you know for an absolute fact the exact number of items you'll have and that number will never change, an array can be a good choice. Also, if you're working with primitive types like int or double and performance is the absolute most critical thing, an array can be just a tiny bit more efficient. But for pretty much every other situation you will ever encounter, a collection is the way to go. If the number of items might change, you need a collection. If you need a ready-made data structure like a list or a queue, you need a collection. If you need to do complex things like sorting or searching, you guessed it, you want a collection. It's just going to save you so much time and so many headaches. So there you have it. Now you understand the why. You know why the Collections API is so critical. But believe me, we've only just scratched the surface. In our next explainer, we're going to dive deep into the what and the how. We'll explore all the different types of collections, like lists, sets, and maps. We'll see how to actually use them in our code. It is going to be great, so I really hope to see you there.